Hello, everyone. Welcome to Live Out Loud Wednesday. As you all are aware, it is Domestic Abuse Awareness Month. And so one of our guest speakers that we have is Latrissa. Latrissa is going to talk to us about some of her traumas with domestic abuse and what she's been through and how she's gotten to where she's at today. Again, everyone can be a victim. It doesn't have a race, an age, a name, or a particular person on it. So, and it comes in all different forms. Latrissa, would you like to tell us a little bit about your story?
Sure. I want to start off saying I am Latrissa Favorite. I am a minister and also a motivational speaker. I'm a mother of six. I have one granddaughter. Um, and my goal in my ministry and my business is to help people heal emotionally from the traumas that they have endured throughout their life, whether it was childhood, domestic abuse, whatever the case may be. Um, the ministry that God has given me is to help others heal emotionally. I have been in multiple abuse, whether that was physical, mental. Um, I've been in a few of them. So I want to start off with a little bit, not so much of the backstory of how I believe abusive relationships. And that came from some childhood trauma of me being raped multiple times by multiple family members and also by a family. With the family member, it was a person of authority that had some authority over me. Um, and they would cause other people to molest me. So it was almost like it was a game. So there was a lot of trauma, a lot of residue left over from that, which I believe is what caused me to get into abusive. In those abusive relationships, the first abusive relationship was with my oldest three children's father. He was much older than me. I was 14. He was 22. He was a dope dealer. He um, he just was way more experienced than. So I was attracted to the car. He drove an Audi. So I was attracted to the Audi. I was attracted to older men because of the trauma that I experienced in being raped as a child. I felt that only older men. Um, so I went that way, only dating older men. Um, and so, as I said, the dope dealer, he drove an Audi. So I was mesmerized by those things. Um, so I ended up getting with him, um, and there was no abuse. Um, my Soon as I turned 18 and I out of my dad's house into my own apartment, of course, he came to stay with me. We started dating. It wasn't weekly, it wasn't every other. It was daily, like fighting for my life. You know his history, so I believe that was a big thing. He, as I came to find, was murdered when he was a child, and he was on the phone talking to her as she was being murdered. So he had a lot of trauma. And those aren't questions that we ask in relationships, or those aren't things that we even look for. How is someone's mental health? How is someone's emotional health? We don't think about those things. So I was so mesmerized by the fact that he had money, the fact that when I met him, he had his own place, and he had this car. And so I didn't look for anything else. I didn't look for him to offer me anything else. And so the abuse started. He would just flip out, like anything he would get mad at. He would just start screaming, "You're not my mom." issues stemmed from the fact that he had lost his mother. He had never got any therapy behind it. He had never did anything about what he was feeling and his trauma. So his trauma was put onto me. So he wanted it would be, I mean, a knockdown, drag out fight every day. Where I remember an instance where I don't care if it was just me talking on the phone to a friend, he would be upset that I was on the phone. If I would watch back then, Jerry Springer was out. So if I would be sitting there watching Jerry Springer, he would just flip out and say, "You're watching Jerry Springer. Why are you watching this show?" And then he wants to fight. It just starts this huge fight. He was a drinker. He was an alcoholic. Um, and so I remember this one particular day, I was sitting in my kitchen, and this is when we still had the phones on the walls. And I was talking on the phone to a friend, and he didn't want me to be on the phone. And so I just kept talking, and I had my back towards him, but I could hear him coming towards me. So as I turned around in the chair, he punched me in my eyes, and my eye busted open, and I flipped back in the chair. And so I've always been a fighter. So I remember getting up, and I took the phone that was on the wall, and I hit him in the head with it, and it busted his head open. It was this big thing, and I remember my younger daughter was there, and I can't remember exactly how old she was, but she was old enough to say to the police, um, what she what I guess she remembered. What stuck out to her was that I hit her dad with the phone. Um, so I remember her repeating that to the policeman, is that when they asked her what happened, and she said, "My mom hit my dad in the head with the phone," but she missed the part that my eye was busted open. And she was little, she was young, she was a kid, so she didn't really understand. Um, but that was one of the bigger things that happened, because from that, the police came, my dad came, my brothers came. It was just this big thing. And then I stayed in it. I still, after getting it, and I did, and fighting every day, I didn't get out of it. He was from Milwaukee, and he had left and went back to Milwaukee. I remember another incident where I took my kids down there to see him, and I don't even know what the fight started about. Like I said, we fought every day, so it could be over something so small as to what I was watching on TV. And so I remember him stomping me, just stomping me unconscious, um, in Milwaukee, where his sister um, couldn't get him off. She had to call her dad. She had to call everybody to get him off. And so this was just an occurrence. And I stayed with him for, I was 14. I stayed with him about 9 years. I stayed with him about 9 years, and I fought every day of 9 years. Well, let me say from 18. I fought every day for about that amount of time. So at that time, it would have probably been about 6 years. I fought every day of 6 years. Um, After that relationship, I went, which was just crazy, because um, I went right into a relationship with my other children. I have a set of twins with their father, who was an addict, a crack addict. He was also an alcoholic. I did not know he was a crack addict when I met him. I was kind of naive. Um, I was raised with my mom and dad are still married. So I was raised in a two-parent household. Um, I wasn't around addicts, although I have some aunts and uncles who are addicts. My mom and dad sheltered us from that. So I didn't know signs to look for in that. So I didn't know he was an addict. But on top of that, I met him when he had just got out of prison doing 5 years at that time. So of course he was healthy. He was not doing drugs at the time because he had just got out of prison for 5 years. So I couldn't see it. Um, and it would he it, we would go, we would be in the car, and he would be driving me around from crack house to crack house, and I didn't know this was what was going on. I would be sitting in the car, just stay in the car, and I would sit in the car, and he would go in and get high, and then he would come back out, and he would just be um, what we may call geeking or high, where his eyes was buck and he was sweating, but I still didn't know what that was. So I was very green and very naive to what was going on. So this happened for a little while, and I never knew that he was a crack addict. And so as I started figuring it out, still didn't run. I still didn't get out of it because I felt like I needed that love and attention from a man. It didn't matter what he had to offer or what he didn't have to offer. I just wanted that love and attention from a man. And so, even with knowing that he was a crack addict, I still didn't leave. So it had got to the point that not only was he an addict, he is considered to this day, he's actually in federal penitentiary for the rest of his life to this day. Um, but at that time, he was labeled a menace to society. So not only was he an addict, but he was a menace to society. I didn't know any of this. So, um, come to find out, there was some family connections. Like he was best friends with one of my older cousins, um, because he was old. He was older than me as well. He was about 8 years older than me. And so he was older. I mean, he was friends with my older cousin, and I didn't know about that because, of course, I didn't hang with my older cousin, so I didn't know. So my aunt started telling my mother about him. And I didn't understand at this time. My mom started trying to take my kids for me because she knew about his history and she had heard about him. I didn't know, and then even when I did find out, I was kind of against my mom. Um, I felt like she was wrong for trying to take my kids from me, but she just wanted them to be safe. So some of the things I had found out about him, and let me add, I still stayed in the relationship, was that he had an attempted murder at that time. He had aggravated assaults where he beat someone almost to death with his hands. Um, he stabbed someone up. His record was, it was pages. So when I finally did go downtown to the courthouse and got his record, it was pages long, pages. So I can't even recount all of the things that he had on there, but it was definitely a lot. And so the first time he hit me, I was trying to leave him. And I had my son at the time was about 2, and I had him in the stroller, and we were outside in his mother's yard, and she was on a hill. And because I wanted to leave her house, he got upset and he hit me, and he punched me so hard in my head. I say I could feel my brain shake. I don't know if that's possible, but that's what it felt like. Is that like something was shaking and I couldn't focus. So I ended up just falling over and I ended up rolling down the hill. And as I came to, I could hear him laughing. And then I said, "You just hit me." He said, "No, I didn't. I slapped you with an open hand. I didn't. No, I said you punched me." He said, "No, I didn't. I slapped you with an open hand." I said, "No, you punched me." And he said, "No, I didn't. That was an open hand. If I would have punched you, you'd have been dead." So he didn't want to accept. That's what he did. So I ended up taking my son at that time, and I remember trying to leave him walking down the highway. They lived off a highway, and I remember pushing my son's stroller down the highway. And he came and tried to fight me and tussle with me. So then it made me go back to the house. So we went through that. All there was a lot of abuse in between that, but there was many instances where I should have left, not left, but I didn't. I ended up moving in to go further. Still, after all of this has happened, I went further to move into the house with him and his mother, and I brought my children. My mom was still trying to get my kids. because she did not want him around him. So she was still trying to get kids, and I wasn't listening to her, wasn't listening to anybody. Even one of his sisters asked me, "Is this the relationship that you want to be in?" Um, and at that time, I guess the answer was yes. And he would make us stay in one room because he had nephews that lived in the house as well. And so he felt that if I interacted with his nephews, then I would mess with one of his nephews, or his nephews could talk to me, and it'd make me talk to them. So he didn't want to have any interaction with anybody in the house. So we would basically be in the room, me and my children in one, um, because we couldn't have interaction with anybody else. Um, I want to add in that his mother knew about everything that was going on. There was an incident where I feel his anger would come from was he was an addict, and he would be jonesing, fiending, craving, whatever you want to call it, um, for cocaine, for crack, and so he would get angry if he couldn't have that. Um, so he would just have angry outbursts. There's no reason at all. It would just be these angry outbursts. And I remember there was a day I was sitting on the floor, living in his mom's house. I'm in his mom's house, and she sees everything, she hears everything. And I was folding clothes, and he just came by and he just slapped me. I mean, slapped fire from me. And I'm just sitting there and I'm just crying. And she says, "Well, you let him do it to you. You don't do nothing." But she knows I'm terrified. She knows I'm terrified. So there was another incident just out of the blue. He just wants to be angry and he hits me. And actually, he's coming towards me. And I go to run into her room. She's sitting on the side of her bed. And I run all the way over on the side she's sitting on. And I'm thinking she's going to save me. And so she doesn't. So he just grabs me by my hair and he drags me all the way from around right where she's at, out the room, out there. And he starts beating me. And she says again, you let him do it. You let him do it. So I felt again, well, she's right. I let him do it, so I deserve this. So this is what I'm thinking. Well, I deserve it. I let him do it. I got with a crack addict, and this is what I deserve. Um, so it got to a point to where we were in the room again. I can't tell you what the argument, the fight, the anger, where it came from, but he played Russian roulette. He picked up a pistol, put a bullet in it. I watched him do it. Put the bullet there, um, put it, and he sat there and he played Russian roulette with me. He pulled the trigger about 3 times. Nothing happened. Then he stopped and he laughed his way through it. There was another incident with him in this room again, where he beat me so bad with a belt, the belt buckle though, the buckle end. He beat me so bad with the end of the belt buckle that I passed out. He thought he killed me. So as I was laying on the floor, I woke up and the Bible was laying on my chest, and he was gone. So I know he thought he had killed me. Um, and so these are the things. These are the things that I have heard, and I went from one bad relationship, abusive relationship, right into the next. They actually fought. Those two actually fought because my oldest kid's father punched me while Bobby was in jail. Excuse me for using his name, but while he was in jail. And so when I went to visit him in jail, seeing that my eye was messed up and asked what happened. So I told him the kid's father had punched me. So when he got out, he went to his house and they actually fought. So this is how um, toxic this was. I went from this bad relationship to the next one. They fought, and then I stayed into this one. Um, I even went so far as into I I left him. I was able to get away from him for a little bit. And I met him through his niece. She was my best friend. She didn't tell me anything about her uncle. Um, her and her sister actually had words because her sister said, "Why would you not tell her about him? Why would you not? And that's your friend." So to say we're not friends anymore. Um, but I met him through her, and I ended up getting away from him for maybe about a month. I moved in with my mom and dad. He knew he couldn't. I left, and this was me trying to get away from him. Is I moved back in with my mom and dad and with my children, but I was still friends with his niece, and so I went to her house. We used to just kind of hang out and cook with our kids and just do stuff like that. And so I took my kids to our house in Richfield, and we were there and we were cooking. And it was probably about 1 or 2 in the morning, and I'm leaving, and I'm like, okay, the kids were sleeping back in my car, and I'm like, okay, it's time to go home. So now I'm driving back to my mom and my dad's house, and I ride down Penn and Lowry, and it's about 2 in the morning, and I see him standing on the corner. I haven't seen him in about a month. And I see him standing on the corner, and we locked eyes, and I actually kept going. And then what I felt was sympathy, but what it was trauma, me acting out in my trauma. But what I thought was sympathy, I went back around because I felt bad that he was outside at 2 o'clock in the morning, but that's where he wanted to be. He was out looking for drugs at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I felt bad, and I went back around the corner, and he got in the car and this started this thing. And he got in the car and he said, now you're going to stay out here with me. My kids were in the back, in back of the car asleep. And he says, now you're going to stay out here with me. And I said, no, I'm going home. I'm going to my mom and dad's house. And he said, no, you're staying out here with me. You're going to stay with me. So we went on this thing going from crack house to crack house. And then I just kind of got hip and like, okay, I'm going to snatch the key. Well, what he would do is he would take the key out of the ignition every time we pulled up to this house. He would snatch the key out of the ignition so I couldn't leave. So I got hipped. Okay, well, I'm going to snatch the key. So we go to this last house, and um, I snatched the key out the ignition first. And he says, if you leave, then I know you don't really love me. He said, and I'm going to end up killing you. And I said, I'm not leaving. I'm not going to leave. So I waited until he got in the house, and I thought got situated. And I turned the key and I back out. And as I'm backing out, he jumps on top of the car. And I just keep going. Now, this house was probably about 6 to 7 blocks away from my mom and dad's house. And so as I pull up to my mom and dad's house, um, I'm trying to wake my kids up. My kids are asleep in the back. And so now I'm out of the car, and it was a two-door. So I'm bent down. I'm trying to wake my kids up, get them in the house. And I hear like a chain drop. Um, and I look up, and it's a bike. It's a bike. And he jumped off the bike. So the bike had just kept going. When he just jumped off it while it was driving. So it kept going, and then it fell over. So that's what I heard was the bike falling over. But he was standing there now. And so he punches me in my face. And I'm standing outside of my mom and dad's house. And he says, go get your dad, go get your brothers, go get your dad, go get your brothers so I can kill him. Go ahead, go get him. Go tell him I just punched you so I can kill him. And I stood there, and I was reminded um, back to when I was a child and I had got raped by a family friend. My family member who was watching me said to the guy that raped me, when she found that he raped me and she knew what he did to me, she said, her dad will kill you if he finds out. And so at that moment, I took on a lot of responsibility. Um, I, one, didn't want my dad to kill anybody. I, two, didn't want my dad to go to prison. Three, I didn't want my dad to be hurt. There's a chance that he can be to get hurt. So I had learned at that moment to keep things to myself, um, because I didn't want to involve other people And I felt like these things were my fault. So I didn't want anybody else to get hurt from the things that I've done. So I stood there and he said, go in the house, get your dad and your brothers, because I'm gonna kill them when they come out. I'm killing them. And so I didn't want that to happen. So I got in the car with him again. My kids were still in the back seat on the seat, sleep. So now we're in the car again, riding from crack house to crack house to crack house. It's probably now about 4 or 5 in the morning. Um, and I figured I had remembered that there was a crack house that he had went to that was like on the other side of town from where I lived. So I'm like, if I get him there, get him out my car, um, he can't ride a bike back to where I'm going. So I took him down past Olson Highway, um, and he had fell asleep. And I don't know if you guys experienced this or if anyone experienced this, but when someone has been on a crack binge for days, once they go to sleep, they're asleep. Um, so it's hard to get them up. So um, I was just mortified because I couldn't wake him up to get out the car. So I sat there for probably a good 30 minutes, waking him up, trying to wake him up. And I took him to the area where there were these young guys that were out there selling dope that I knew he had been before. And so I finally got him woke and I was like, they said they got some dope for you. Um, he jumps up without even thinking. So he just jumps up and he jumps out the car, which was good for me. So I locked the doors. Um, I start to drive off and he starts screaming for the guys at the corner. He says, stop that car. Don't let that car by. And so they made a line in front of the car to where I couldn't get through. So I rolled the window down a little bit and I said, I promise you, I'll kill one of you guys before I allow him to kill me and my kids. So you better move. I'm going to run you all down. And they moved. And so I drove home, drove to my mom and dad's house, got my kids um, in the house. And about 7 that morning, I got a call from a lady, a crack addict lady that was in the house with him, I guess, when the police came in the house and they picked him up. And I guess he had some warrants and all this other stuff. So they picked him up. So he tells her to call and tell me that he went to jail. Um, and what I said to her was, I'm sorry that his misfortune is my blessing. Um, but this is my blessing because had he not went to prison that night or to jail that night, ended up in prison for 38 years, I believe he would have killed me and my kids that night. Um, so he ended up in prison. Um, he has recently gotten out because of the laws or whatever. He didn't do his full 38 years. He got out. From what I understand, I'm not even sure, but from what I understand is he got out, reoffended, and now he's in there for life, is my understanding. Um, so that's just a gist of the things that I went through with him. Um, After that, I still hadn't healed. I still um, didn't have any type of understanding of who I was, what God wanted for me, or anything. Um, and I to another abusive relationship. And this time, this guy actually held us hostage and tried to kill me and my kids. Uh, So in this moment, I want to focus on how I met him because, and the reason why I want to do that is because I want to show what an unhealed person will do and how an unhealed mind works. Because with me being so unhealed from all the trauma, my childhood traumas, the other relationships I was in, all of those, being an unhealed person, what that allowed me to get me and my children in, um, which it ended up being my last straw. And that was my turnaround for me, where I knew something needed to change in me. Forget what all that they did, but I knew something needed to change in me at that moment. But I met a guy Didn't know anything about him. Again, longing to want to be with a person, with a man, and just have that love, because that was stolen from me as a child. So wanting that and longing for that caused me to continue to get in abusive relationship after abusive relationship. So I met a guy. Now I'm trying to get myself together. And I was at the Basilica of St. Mary, and they had a lot of things that they help people with: rent, um, food. Um, they had like a financial class. And so I'm at the Basilica trying to use some of their services to get back on my feet. And I meet a man there at the Basilica trying to get on his feet. So I said that to say, um, women need to understand that I'm not saying that a man has to have it all together, or that he has to have all this money, or that he has to be of a certain financial stature. I'm not saying that. But what I am going to say is that if he's in the same place trying to get the help that you need, what can he offer? What can he offer you? Um, if you need help to get yourself together, what do you have to offer me? You can't add to me. So there was nothing that he could add to me. There was nothing he could give me. There was nothing he can do for me but sex. And so I met him there. Again, what I didn't know, I found this out after the fact. Not only was he there to get services for himself, but he was there with, oh gosh, Turning Point, I think. He was there with the Turning Point um, group, or whatever, halfway house, or whatever you call it. So he was there because he was in a halfway house. Um, but I didn't know that's why he was there. So, anyways, I met this guy at the Basilica trying to get help. He was there with his group, and I ended up moving him into my house in about 2 weeks. Um, didn't know, didn't know his mama's name, didn't know his daddy's name, didn't know nothing. Moved him into my house in about 2 weeks. Um, he came in, and he was like the best thing to me, the best thing to me, um, that I thought. So I didn't have to iron my work clothes. I didn't have to walk the dogs. He took my kids to daycare. I just found Prince Charming. Um, I had even went to my church and told them I was getting married, and we wanted to start marriage counseling, and all of this. And knew him 2 weeks now. And so I just I just thought that we had everything together. I started finding out he would take my son to football practice, and in that, taking my son to football practice while I was at work, um, when I would go to practice, I would see the other mothers like kind of looking at me and kind of talking under their breath and talking about me, and I'm like, what is this about? So finally, one day, one of them just told me and was like, when he brings your son up here, he's trying to talk to all the women, and I think one of the women was in your house. And I said okay, but I had never seen any. Um, I have no inclination of anybody being in my house. I didn't see anything, or so. This one particular day, I came home from work, and I went. I had 3 bathrooms in my house at that time. There was one right when you come in the front door. There was one in my bedroom, and then there was one upstairs in the hallway. So I go in my bedroom and I go in the bathroom and I see a tampon in the garbage. And I was just like, this is not for me. So I asked him, I was like, who do you have? Who did you have in my house? He's like, I didn't have anybody in your house. And I was like, no, you had somebody in my house. Who'd you have in my house? So I pulled my sheets, pulled my blankets back. There was nothing on my bed. I was like, no, you had somebody in my house. And so he goes on and he says it was his cousin's girlfriend. She had to use the bathroom. And I'm like, there's 3 bathrooms. Why did she use my bathroom? So we went through this back and forth things. So my thing was, I'm done with you. I want you to get out of my house. I don't have any kids with you. I don't have any connection with you. There's nothing keeping me with you. I want you to leave my house. He wouldn't leave my house um, because he um, he just didn't want to leave. He didn't have anywhere to go, so he just didn't want to leave. So I didn't want to call the police because I didn't want to be put out. So I knew that if we had any police calls, then we would have to move. So I didn't call the police, and I didn't want to call the police. So I just kept asking him, just leave my house, please leave my house. He wouldn't leave. Um, so I go to work, and um, I was working for a dentist at this time, and I told him I wanted him to get out of my house. So that day that I told him, well, I've been telling him, but that particular day I told him again, I really do want you to get out of my house. And he's like, okay, I cheated on you, but you can cheat on me. Let me take this back. Before that day, that night is when I seen the mental um, and the emotional breakdown that he was having. I could physically see it um, because he could bench. He was a very muscular man. He could bench press like 500,
Mhm.
and so um, he when I told him to leave, he just kind of flopped his body. He threw his whole body on the ground like a kid having a tantrum, and he said, "No, you can have sex with somebody right in front of me. Since I cheated on you. You can have sex with somebody right in front of me, but I'm not leaving." I said, "No, you're leaving. You need to leave my house." So we had our argument that night. Get up, I go to work. I took my kids to daycare. Um, I told my daycare that he could not pick them up anymore. So he would call my job. That day, he called my job over 300 times, my boss counted. And um, each time was something different. He would either be calling saying, "Bitch, I'm going to kill you." Then the next call would be, "I love you. I'm so sorry. And I just want you back." And then the next call would be, "Bitch, I'm going to kill you." And so it was about 300 calls that particular day. And I remember my boss and his business partner um, sitting me down and saying, it's okay to love somebody, but um, you need to love them enough to pray them away from you. And he was like, you need to get away from him. This is not okay. He's called your job 300 times. That you need to leave him alone. So I told him, I said, if you call my job one more time, I am going to try to call a mental hospital and have you committed. Um, and so time comes for me to get off. I go pick my kids up. I didn't have a car at that time because I remember my coworker dropping me and my kids off, and she asked me, "Was I okay? Was I afraid to go in the house?" And I said I was not afraid to go in the house. And so um, I remember having my work bag on one hand, on one arm, and my purse on another arm. And as soon as I walked through the door, I was the first one through the door. He just punched me. He was standing at the door, and as soon as I opened the door, he just punched me, and he knocked me out. Very, very, very strong man, and as I said, he can bench press like 500, super strong. And he knocked me out one punch. Um, so as I came to, um, I later found out that he was stomping me. My ribs were broke. Um, my hair and I used to wear sew-ins, so all my hair in the middle was gone, pulled out from the root, um, from him dragging me by my hair and snatching me by my hair. All the blood vessels in my eyes were popped. Um, but when I was coming to, I seen my oldest daughter up against the door, and she had her head. She was going like this because he was about to punch her. And all I could think about was, if he hits my baby, he's gonna kill her, because he just knocked me out with one punch, so he's gonna kill her. So I was like, I don't care if he hits me again, but you're not gonna hit her. And so I picked up a lamp and I hit him with the lamp, which took the focus off of her and turned the focus on me. So he ended up not hitting her. Um, so through all this, he punched me again, knocked me down again. My youngest baby she had to be um, 4. She had to be 4 at this time. And I remember seeing her running up and grabbing him on his leg and biting him and pinching him, telling him to get off of her mom. I remember my other kids behind the couch. Um, and then I remember my oldest son coming out of the kitchen. I can see him coming out of our kitchen, and he's running with a knife, and he's running like this. And he says, "I'm going to kill you." And of course, he just overpowered my son and took the knife from him, and pushed him on the ground. And at that time, I said, I've had my kids in some bad predicaments, but in my past relationships, they've never actually went after my kids. They were involved in it and they were traumatized by it, but they never went after them. But this person was actually trying to harm my kids. And so I had never seen anything like that. And so it scared me. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, he's really trying to kill us. Like, this isn't like the past. He's really, really trying to kill us. Um, and so during this whole ordeal, he's telling me, I just want to have sex with you one more time. I just want to have sex with you one more time. Um, I should have known. Well, I'll add this at the when I get to that part. And so he's saying, I just want to have sex with you one more time. And me being a fighter, I was fighting the whole time. I had grabbed a knife. By the time it was over, I had ended up. He got the knife from me, and so I ended up grabbing the blade because I'm like, if he gets it, he's gonna kill me. So I remember grabbing the blade like this, and so the inside of my hands were cut up. Um, like I said, through all the fighting, it was a 3-day ordeal, three whole days. Um, I didn't go to work. I didn't call in. He held us hostage for 3 days. My kids were at daycare. My mom, I talked to my mom every day. And so she would call and he had my cell phone and he would be like, she's asleep or she went to the store or something. And so my mom didn't think anything of it until the 3rd day. Her response was, if I didn't talk to you today, I was coming with my gun. Um, but it took 3 days, and she only knew something was wrong because of my children's daycare provider called her and told her the kids hadn't been there for days. And so we were held hostage in the house. He put my kids in one room, locked them in the room. Um, it was just fighting, just going on and on and on. And this is when I really knew that I had a relationship with God. I had got to um, the 3rd day, and I said I had given up. I said I was going to die. He could kill me. He was fine. But I wanted my kids to get out of the house, so that I was no longer my concern. My concern was getting my kids out the house, and if he killed me, that was okay. And I said, and I said this to God, and I said, I'm okay. I'm ready to die. I'm okay. And I heard God speak just as clear as if he was standing next to me. And he said, you cannot physically win. He said, you have to fight them spiritually. You will not physically win. And I stopped and I said, oh, okay. Um, okay. Now I got to use my wits here. I gotta figure this out. And so during this old ordeal, like I said, he kept saying, I just want to have sex with you one more time. I just want to have sex with you one more time. And I was fighting that. Like, he would be, um, during the whole ordeal, he would be trying to rip my clothes off me, stick his fingers in me, just doing all types of crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. And I would fight it. I'm fighting it. Like, no, you're not just going to do this. And I'm just going to be willing. It's not going to happen. So I fought him through the whole process. And like I said, just everything. So I said this day, I said, okay, I'll have sex with you. And I said, but you got to let me talk to my kids first. And he said, okay. My kids were locked in the room. And the way my house was set up was it was just straight like this. The hallways was like this. So The room that my kids were in, which was my daughter's room, was right at the end of the hallway, and my room was right at the other end of the hallway. And so during this time, I said, let me talk to my kids. And he said, okay. I said, you go in the room, get yourself together. I'll be in there. Just let me talk to my kids. And he said, okay, that's all I want. That's all I want is just to have sex with you again. That's all I want. And so I went in there and I bent down and I told my daughter, and I said, when I go in my room and I close my door, I want you to take your siblings and you go out this house and you don't come back in here. I said, they had a teacher that lived across the street. And I said, you go to your teacher's house and you tell her what's going on. I said, leave the door open and unlocked so the police can come in. I said, but you don't come back in this house for no reason. She said, okay. I said, so as soon as my door closes, get out of here. She said, okay. So I went in my room, and I don't know, seems like forever, but I went in my room and I sat there, and I stood at the door and I just talked to him. And I don't know what I was saying, just stalling. But I was just talking to him, and he kept saying, that's all I want. I love you. And I just want to have sex with you one more time. And this, and this. And when God told me to run, I just ran. So I heard God say, run. And I opened the door and I ran out, and he grabbed my hair as I'm going down the stairs. He was right behind me. But as I got to the bottom of the stairs, I ran into the arms of the police. And they ended up tasing him. He ended up going to jail. Well, our lovely system. He went to jail. He even got found guilty on multiple counts: sexual abuse, domestic abuse, terroristic threats, child abuse. For each one of my kids, and I have 6 kids, and for myself. So he had so many charges, but because he had a job, they allowed him to turn himself in and to get his affairs in order. Um, and of course, he didn't turn himself in. But when he was in court, the probation officer um, said he needs to do real time because he kept telling them he couldn't take fault for he couldn't see his fault in what he did. He kept telling me it was my fault. And had I not had sex with him the way that I did, he wouldn't be the way that he is. And so I remember, could have been an advocate or could have been probation, but one of them standing up and saying, he cannot take responsibility for what he did. The next woman he gets with, he's going to kill her. And they still allowed him the opportunity to turn himself in. He did not do that. He ended up, and I only know this because something told me to Google him one day. And I Googled him, and he was in Stillwater for, I want to get the words right, brutally or either aggravated um, rape of a child under 12 or 9. I couldn't remember. I can't remember which it was. It was either 12 or the age of 9 that he did not know. So he seen a child on the street, um, brutally rape him, um, and ended up in prison for it. So I wrote a letter to them, and I told them had they did what they were supposed to do with me and my children, he would not been able to hurt anybody else's baby. But because y'all dropped the ball, that's your fault that happened to her. Um, and of course, I didn't get a response back, but they needed to know um, that they dropped the ball. And I want to. There was a lot of red flags that were there. When me and him would have sex, it was like rape. It was so intense and so aggressive um, that he had actually caused some scarring in me because it was so intense. Um, And so that's a sign, like that's just not okay. So that was a sign that I overlooked. I went to a barbecue with him one time, and his whole family was staring at me like, what are you doing with him? What you know? And so I even actually heard one of his, I think his cousins, ask him like, "Where'd you meet her at?" Um, because they're looking like, should no woman be with him? Um, Come to find out, he had a baby with his cousin, his female cousin. He was um, raping raping her, and they ended up having a baby. Um, um, there's just been a lot. Those are the three abusive relationships I've been in. And I don't want to forget about the mental and the emotional abuse that I endured in those relationships, but more so in my marriage. Um, I still wasn't healed. I knew that I wasn't going to allow another man to put their hands on me, or I wasn't going to get in another physically abusive relationship, but I hadn't healed emotionally and mentally either. So all I did was get out of the physical um, abuse relationships and went to a mental and emotional abuse relationship. And I married him because I felt like he was the best because he didn't put his hands on me. So I ended up marrying him, but he was just as abusive mentally and emotionally. I was all types of fat bitches every day. Um, you need to take showers 3 times a day. And I was like, I don't smell. You've never smelled me. I didn't say that, but you're fat. So you need to take showers 3 times a day. Um, it was just terrible, terrible. Just the mental and emotional abuse that I endured with him. So I ended up leaving that relationship as well, divorcing him. But with my last physically abusive relationship, that's when something changed in my life. Um, I didn't have it all together. I wasn't completely healed, but I knew something changed in my life at that moment because it was for my kids, and I did not want to see anyone hurt my kids. I thought about, had my son killed him, now my son has to live his life killing somebody, trying to protect me when I should be protecting him. So that's when my life changed tremendously. I not only went to church, but I started having a relationship with God. I wanted to know who I was. I wanted to heal. I didn't want to go through the same cycle um, that I had been going through my whole entire life. My whole life was just abuse. So I knew something needed to change, and I wanted that change more so at that time for my children. Um, and then I brought myself into it, but I just didn't want my kids to experience anymore, to see anymore, to hear more abuse, because I seen how it shaped them. For about 2 years after we were held hostage, my youngest daughter would wake up in her sleep and she would scream his name, and she would say, he pulled your hair out," and she would just jump up and say, "Mom, he pulled your hair out." And I'll be like, "Yeah." And then my middle son, he had adopted anxiety from that. He did not have anxiety before that. And after that, he worries about everything. I mean, everything. Um, my kids were so scared when they went to school and the detectives came to talk to them about what had happened. They thought when they got called to the office that he was coming to pick them up again. So they ran out of the school. They got together and it was just the detectives there, but they didn't know that. So they ran out of the school and they had to go find my kids outside because they thought he was coming to get them. So my kids were so traumatized. I mean, beyond traumatized. And that was something that bothered me because I didn't want to do that to them, but because of me being unhealed, I put them in so many different um, and um, it just killed me. So that's really my story. Um, you guys have any questions for me?
First of all, I want to say glory to be to God for your strength and your ability to just come through,
Hmm.
break through. You broke through, and you are amazing, sister. And I am so grateful to even be able to have you on our platform, but more so just to be able to hear your story and just to be able to understand, um, that we're not alone in this, but
Hmm.
no matter what our walks are, what our journeys are, what we've gone through, that there is a chance and an opportunity to break through. Um, and I just want to extend love to you and honor and grace to you. And I just, I'm so grateful for your life, for you to be alive, for you to be living, for you to be healing, right? Because we're always continuously healing. So that's what I wanted to say to you. Much love, sister.
Thank you. Much love. Thank you.
I wanted to also say, my God, you are amazing. You are
Thank you.
amazing. You are a survivor
Thank
and you are here right
you.
now for a purpose.
Hmm. Yes, absolutely. I like to use. There's nothing wrong with using the word survive. I like to use the word victor because
I
I've
like
had
that.
to survive. Like,
Yeah.
so I've never been and live abundantly. So I want to live and I want to be victorious over the things that I. So I like to use the word victor, but I respect survivor though.
No, I
So,
love
but
that.
I love that as well.
Yeah.
um, that that
Yeah.
and that's what I really want to leave with women. Even because there's me to say this too. There was a point. I always say when you have a guilt that you're become a predator or a prey, and I believe that I became both of those in one life, um, because it relate in my marriage, my second, um, that was the mentally abusive and the emotionally abusive relationship. But I physical abuse um, in that relationship. He has never put his never. He talked. Um, hurt is bad. Um, so he said, but in that I became the physical abuser because now this is what you're me. So now I'm gonna act out. I'm gonna hit you with this barbell. I've tried to hit him with a barbell. I've picked up a full length mirror and tried to hit him with it. We even fought over a pistol. And had I got it, I probably would have shot him because I was unhealed. So
Well, it became into I got to get you before you get me.
yep, and that's exactly what happened. Um, so I don't want to just feel like I am downing men. Um, it's, like I said, there were some things I needed to heal from as well because I became his abuse, um, physical abuser. So there was a lot that I had to overcome um, in that, and that's exactly how I felt. I'm like, a man will never put their hand on me again, or they're gonna lose their hand, and that's how I felt. And I didn't care about going to jail either. I just felt I needed to be safe. I needed to keep my kids safe, and so whatever I felt that consisted of, then that's what I was going to do. Um,
Well, and it's sad to say that usually in relationships that are abusive in any type of manner, um, the guys seem, or the women, people in general, seem to prey on the vulnerable. And so if you are just being as vulnerable as possible and fitting into that woman role and you're soft spoken, you're quiet, you're gentle with things, then it seems like more than likely you're going to end up being a victim of that. And so after you've been through it so many times, it's like, nope, I have to start this off with a big roar to let you know that I'm not going there with you.
right. Yep.
And it's not that your intent is to be an abuser yourself.
Right.
You've put in this mental stage of I have to show you my teeth
Mm-hmm.
so that you don't even take me there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's exactly what happened. So then my kids seen me become the abuser. Um, and so they had to endure that. Um, I'm thankful now that my fiance is so loving, and my kids get to see a healthy relationship for me. They're older. I wish they could have seen it when they were younger, um, but they can see it now. So I am thankful and I'm grateful to God for that, that they are able to see their mother in a healthy and loving relationship. But I think what I want to leave with women is some self accountability. And when I say that, you're never accountable for anyone else's actions. Um, so I'm not saying that it's your fault that this person hit you or this person did this to you. It's not your fault at all. Where we have to take responsibility as women and men, as people, is to be healed emotionally. Because I don't think people really understand that we attract what we are.
Yes.
I don't mean that if you're just because he's a cheater, you're a cheater. I don't mean that. I mean that if you're broken, you're going to attract what's broken. You may not be broken in the same areas, but you're going to attract brokenness. And so what you will get is brokenness. So if you are healthy, if you are healed, then you will attract someone that is healthy and that is healed. And that's where I want us to take self accountability and be aware of what we are doing. If we are not healed, we should not be in relationships because we're asking for help. And so I know that may not be realistic to say, but it should become very realistic that we should not be in relationships, man or woman, until we are healed because all we're doing is projecting our trauma onto someone else and acting out our trauma on someone else. So whether you're man or woman, um, I want you to take some accountability, healed emotionally. I'm not worried about physical because when the emotional and the mental is right, then the physical will fall into place. Um, so that's what I want to leave with women, and what I would. That's my ministry is healing, and that's where it came from. All that I had to heal from, all that I had to endure, and I want to see other women and all people, all men, all colors. Doesn't matter who you are. I would like to see people healed um, emotionally, emotionally healed because it will bring out a better life for ourselves, for us. It's going to bring a better life. We shouldn't have to go through the things that we've went through. And so, no, like I said, we sometimes we can't stop what we've endured as children. That's just our journey. And I believe it was my journey so that I can be here today. My journey so that I can help other women. That's just a journey that God gave me. I accept it. I receive it. People often ask me, do I wish something different? I said I wouldn't have a story. This is just my story. This is my story. This is my journey. I wouldn't change a thing um, because now I can help other people through it. So it used to be my pain, but now it's my purpose. Now it's my power. Um, so that's what I want to leave with everyone is that you can turn your pain into purpose. You can turn it into power. You don't have to succumb to what you've been through. You don't have to live out what you've been through. You don't have to accept less. You're worth more than that. Um, you deserve it. Doesn't matter what happened in your life or what somebody stole from you. You deserve the very best that God has to offer you. You deserve it all. Um, and that's what I want to live for people today.
I
I
like
love that. Yeah, I love that. I did want to read, we had a couple of comments in here. I wanted to quickly read just so we can show love. Everybody, I asked everyone to drop purple hearts in, in regards to Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So we got at least over 100 hearts in here in solidarity of everyone, just showing their support. Um, so wanted to say hello to everybody that said
Amen.
hello. Karen said this feels familiar. Let's see. My heart breaks hearing this. Yeah, my heart was breaking, honestly. When you were talking, it sounded so similar to my story, because I have been in 3 abusive relationships. And, when you say it out loud, it's like, wow, I survived all of
Yeah.
that.
It
But then, when someone
hmm
hears it, they're like, well, why have you been in 3? With judgment. But it's like, no one intentionally goes and
It says, I'm going
is
to get with the abuser. I'm
yeah,
going to get with the
exactly.
man that's
Like,
beat on me today.
and of course they didn't show
let
up
me
at
let me throw something in there when you say that.
go ahead.
Mhm.
Oh, did she
No.
freeze?
I'm sorry, it went out, so it was kind of messed up.
Oh,
But quick
okay.
thing I wanted to say is that people look at us and say, "Why have there been people look and say why have abusive relationships?" And I'll tell you why. And a quick thing is when I and the adult that was taking care of me, what she said to me was um, when he out of his room, same apartment, he pushed me. So at that being fast and I was 8 years old, she made me that it was my so the reason why I was born with a relationship is because that's what was imparted into us. Um, Now yours may not be the same as it happened, but something was imparted in us at some point to think that this is what we deserved. And so I thought I was being fast. How an 8 year old can be fast, I don't know. But I thought I was being fast and I thought this was my fault. And so what I got, I felt I deserved. And so I continued on into that because of what was imparted to me at 8 years old.
Yeah, my trauma didn't happen until I was a little bit older. Um, Entrusting
Hmm.
in someone when I was 14, and being date raped, and feeling like this happened to me because I put myself in the situation. I was with a friend. We
Hmm.
snuck out, late at night. Weren't supposed to be sneaking out, and then that's what happened. So when it happened to me, there's 2 ways you can either go. You can, stay in the house and hide, or you can go out and you become this person that you never were because you're worthless. And that's exactly who I became at that
Right.
time. And then, after that, that's where the
Absolutely.
abusers came in, and, my brokenness of, they just spotted it. Like, oh, okay, I see her. And like you said, just bonding with someone who is broken. Of course, you're sharing story, and everybody's getting along. And then it's like, okay, now let me show you my real face. Let me show you who I really am.
Yep. Now
Yep.
the brokenness comes out.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, let me see what Karen just said. Karen said, I was literally shaking in tears. You never realize how bad a situation was for you until you hear and relive it or hear another person's story. I agree. I think
Agree.
sometimes when we go through things, when we're going through things, of course, it's terrible for us. But when you hear
Right.
someone else's story, and they survived it, I mean, because that's the biggest thing is
Yep.
there are women who have been through similar things that didn't survive. It's like, woo, like you said, very victorious you are. And
Thank you.
man, yeah, you definitely are. Dee Dee said, hallelujah. Nikki said, amen. And this is after you were saying, how talking about getting out and giving it to God. And that's what their comments were. Glory and thank you, God. I just wanted to, let them know we did see y'all comments. We're not ignoring y'all. Her story was just so amazing. And I wanted her to have this whole time to share that. So I didn't want to interrupt you at all because this is needed. Someone watching this today, whether they're watching the recording or they're watching this live, whether they're male or female, they're going to
Hmm.
be able to feel it. And I hope it saves someone.
Yes.
Mhm.
Whether it's a man who
Absolutely.
is, potentially going to do that, they stop it because you can see
Yes.
what it does to women, what can happen to you, because these men ended up in jail. So if you
Mm.
are a man who's out here doing this, don't think that it's something that you're going to get away with.
Or
And
even
if it's a
women.
woman who thinks that it's okay to be in a situation like this, you
And
are
that
worth
nobody's
more.
gonna
You
say
don't need it.
anything about it.
You don't need it.
Absolutely.
Walk away. I know it's hard. It was hard for me every time I did, but you have to.
Absolutely. It's hard for me.
Yep.
Mm.
Nikki said, "You are so strong and phenomenal." Yes, she
Oh,
is. I just wanted to go around if everyone can give. I know you gave a takeaway, but if you could think of one more thing, if someone is just now clicking on this, what would be one takeaway for a male or female that's watching? What would be one takeaway for you?
I'll take away from me the relationship. I don't uh, say emotionally from past trauma is heal before getting in relationships. I know a lot of us think that a person can what it um, first. Heal. It's going to start with self for yourself. Know that you are went through. You have to act out what you deserve. The very best. You deserve a healthy life. You deserve a life free of pain and of hurt, worry, stress. That's what I want to leave.
Thank you for that. Davina, one takeaway?
My one takeaway is that we need to be paying attention to signs, red flags, gut instincts, all of that. We have to listen to ourselves. We have to love each other and love ourselves and trust ourselves enough to when something just isn't sitting right, it just isn't sitting right. And that means you need to be doing something about it, especially when we're in relationships with other people. If you don't want a person to talk to you in an ill manner, and that is the person that you're saying that you want to be, stand on that
Mhm.
and don't allow anybody to do that to you. Um, I have my one thing is the minute you raise your hand to me, it's done, it's over. We are not going forward with it. I'm out. And I warn everybody in those relationships in the beginning because my out is I'm not telling you the day of.
That's right.
I'm just gonna be gone.
That's right.
You ain't gonna see me no more. You gonna maybe be talking to the police or my peoples, but you won't be talking to me.
Mhm.
I'm out. Like there's nothing else to talk about. We already talked about that in the beginning.
Mhm.
And so I think just setting up those clear boundaries of this is what I will not do.
Absolutely.
And stand on that, live on that. Don't bend. Like we should never bend for somebody that is being disrespectful to us in any type of manner, especially if that's what we're saying in the beginning that we really want. We want somebody to, generally care for us and not do these things. And my one is no, I will not do the physical with anyone. So the minute I think that it's about to go there, we're done.
Absolutely.
Thank
I
you for
agree.
that. And I agree with that too. Ebony, your one takeaway?
If you had one, I'm going to let you go because then I'm going to pray this out along with mine. So if you want to go, you can go.
Yeah, no, I can go. My one takeaway would be for anyone watching this, treat others how you want to be treated and do not allow something that does not feel right to continue. Trust that gut feeling.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I agree.
I'm going to say, and I've said it many times, abuse is not limited. It is not limited to physical abuse. You do not need to feel emotionally, mentally, physically, financially um, disassociated in any situation that you're in. Physical is one thing, rationalization is another, and a lot of people rationalize abuse because they're not being hit. And the reality of it is that abuse is not just by somebody putting their hands on you. They just may not have even gotten to that point yet. But you're going to probably and more than likely endure all kinds of abuse. Recognizing the signs, recognizing abuse, and recognizing that you have to be able to see your way through other forms of abuse and stop making rationalizations about why people are mistreating you. Well, he didn't hit me, so he's not abusing me. That's that's what we do. We rationalize. We need to stop trying to rationalize and actually take a look at it for what it truly is. You might save yourself a lot sooner if you pay attention to those signs to avoid the other levels of abuse that come with trauma. Um, and I just, if anybody has anything else that they want to say, you can say it now. Otherwise, I'm going to pray this out. I'm going to pray us out as we end this tonight. And I think this was extremely powerful. Latricia, I want to connect with you on many other levels. Women Empowered needs to have you in our life. So we need to connect with you on other levels.
Absolutely.
We didn't even know each other.
No.
This is God's business here, right here. This is all God.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me, you guys.
Yes.
All right. So we're gonna pray out, and all right, God. I just ask you, God, just to, first of all, I just want to give thanks. I want to give thanks for you to have provided us with the opportunity to be on this line this evening with this amazing woman. I'm just grateful, God, that you were able to pull us all together, to pull people together in the space of healing and restoration, God. I just ask that you continue to restore the hearts, the minds, and the well-being of women and men who are affected by this really sad but victorious and can be victorious situation, God. I ask that you just continue to shine the light positively on each and every soul that may have endured, is enduring, or may even still be coming into a place where they may endure these things, God. I just ask that you continue to lift them up and help them have the pair of eyes to see that there is better out here for them and that you want better for their lives, God, and that your will be done. I just want to just give glory and thanks to you for just providing the space, this hour, this time, for bringing this amazing woman into Women Empowered and just bringing her into the light where she's able to share her story and help many others. For we know that when one life is touched and one life is healed, there are many more that are touched by that, and that you are here to restore those things, God. I just ask that you continue to provide peace and, again, more and more restoration as we come through trauma and things that we are still trying to heal from. I just want to say thank you, God. Thank you for providing this for us. In Jesus' name we pray, and we pray out this evening. Amen.
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 Amen. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for everyone who was watching. I did just want to say, if you are someone who is in a situation and you do need help, the domestic abuse hotline is 1-800-799-7233, or you could simply text START to 788-788 because someone is always available to help, as well as anyone in Women Empowered. We are all willing to help. We have resources. Please reach out. That is what we are here for. That is what we are trying to be available to let you know. We want to help. We want to heal everyone, save everyone. And if we can be a part of that journey, just please let us know. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your story. I am so thankful to be able to speak to you today. And we will most definitely be connecting again. I appreciate you.
We also have a prayer line too, Latricia, if you ever want to join. Our prayer line is at 8 o'clock. And p.m. And then we also have one at 6:30 in the morning too. I think I sent you the link. So nope,
Yep.
just whenever, if you're ever able to join in, and just, we're just extending that invite. So
Yep. We have it every day. So whenever you're available, go ahead and join in on it. But yes,
okay.
we will let everyone go. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate it. Y'all have a good day.
Good night.
Hi.
Night.